Hello, this is JJ Humphrey. I'm with Bobby Cleveland. We're back on Elephant in the Room. We took off a little time for the holidays, Christmas and New Year's. Hope everybody is having a wonderful New Year. Hope you had an awesome holiday, but it's time to get back and discuss what's going on in Oklahoma, what no one else wants to talk about. And so, Bob, today we're going to talk about your favorite subject and one that you know very, very well, maybe as well as anybody I know, and that's the Department of Corrections and your favorite director at the Department of Corrections, and that's Stephen Harp. And so, Bob,
I don't think he's telling the truth.
Bob, I will tell you this. I have been shocked. Let's just start off with one thing that he got out the other day. You sent me an article that he wrote about me, and I came out, and that's kind of why we're here on today, going to have this discussion, is I wrote an article to basically tell the people of the state of Oklahoma about the violence that's occurring in the Department of Corrections. And I want to tell our listeners, I've worked 35 years in probation, Department of Corrections, around this for 35 years. I've never seen anything like the level of violence that we're getting reported. And again, Bob, we can't get a straight answer, yes or no, are we? And again, like you said, is he telling the truth on anything? So he responded back. One of the things he responded to is that he did not receive a $90,000 raise. Now, Bob,
that's a lie.
Well, it is a lie, but let me break it down to you and see if you follow his rationale. So here's the deal. He was the CEO for the entire state.
Yep.
So there's an organization, an agency that does all of the contracts, does all of the spending. Everything has to go through that. It's called OMES. He was the director of OMES.
Well, that's about 50,000 people.
Absolutely. And over the entire state budget. So you're talking about a roughly, I think we had a $13 billion budget last year, something like that. So you're over 13 billion in spending, and you're the top person. Now, let's make sure that we say that he left out of there. Now, what he claims is that the governor wanted him to take over DOC because it was in such a
he made a mess at Old Man.
Oh, he had a mess. It was old mess is what, when they got done with it, wasn't OMES, it was old mess, you know. And so here's the deal. He had a big scandal on barbecue. He left out of there with a lot of barbecue on his shirt, you know. I think they had a lot of problems with their COVID money, keeping track of COVID money, keeping track of ARPA money, lots of problems. And so they basically had to sneak him out the back door, in my opinion. Now, that's just me, my opinion. And they moved him over to the Department of Corrections. Now, the Department of Corrections director at the time, which was Stephen Crow, Director Crow, who I will say, me and Director Crow had our differences, and I had some issues with Director Crow. But I will tell you, Director Crow never stopped talking to me. Director Crow never stopped working for, you know, things to try to improve. And I will tell you, I think Director Crow really did care about his employees. I feel like
no question about that.
Yeah, I would not argue that.
Him and Alba was the same too. Alba cared.
I think they cared about their employees. This person, I don't think he cares one iota about his employees. In fact, I think he cares about himself, and that's about it. But, Bob, he comes from OMES director where he's saying that he made $275,000. I've got to go check that out to make sure that's true, but I don't doubt that that may be true. As we said, he was over a $13 billion budget. He's over all the spending. He's over all the contracts. And again, he was in some ugliness. It sounds like. I'm on one of the investigative teams, and it does look like that, you know, I'm not saying he was direct responsible for the embezzlement, the so-called embezzlement, they still haven't charged anybody. By understanding, they're always very slow on that. They wait till everybody forgets, and then they don't do anything. But here's the deal: he was definitely over those contracts. It was his responsibility, and there was definitely some underhanded stuff going on there. So yeah, I would hold him partially responsible. So he comes over to the Department of Corrections, kind of snuck out the back door, comes over there, claims he was sent over there to cure the world, help the Department of Corrections, save the Department of Corrections. He holds out that he's doing that so well. And at the end of the day, he got $275,000. Now he's saying he come over making $275, and they just kept his salary at $275, so it's not a raise. Bob, if the job paid $185,000, and now you make $275,000 for the same job, is that not a raise?
That's a raise.
I think most people in the state of Oklahoma would say that's a raise.
Well, he paid the highest rate of anybody in Oklahoma that's ever been a DOC director by far. He's probably about the third highest paid director in the United States. And we certainly don't have the same amount of people in California in the prisons, nor do we have the budget of California and Texas.
Well, Bob, if you look at Texas, they got a $3 to $4 billion with a B, $3 to $4 billion
larger
budget than Oklahoma.
We're not even at $1 billion on our budget for DOC.
A little over $500 million budget, and they've got a $3.5 or $4 billion budget, and so it's $3 million more is what you can say. In fact, our media team actually said, I said 3 million, and they come back and rechecked me and said, no, it's between 3 and 4 billion, not million, billion. So you know what I'm saying? To have him the same salary as Texas that has thousands of inmates more, and you have a director that's got 30 years experience, 30 years of training. And
he has
yeah, Director Crow has zero.
Not Director Crow.
I mean, sorry. Director Crow. Here's what's funny. Director Crow made 185, and guess what? He had 20 years experience. I think he had education. I know he had training. I know he had law enforcement background before that, I believe. So, I mean, he
was a sheriff deputy.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's got some knowledge of things that he's doing. I got no question that Director Crow knew the Department of Corrections, had been working in the Department of Corrections. When I was there, he was pretty already at a high level in the Department of Corrections. So, I mean, he's got a lot of experience. Director Crow did. Now, Director Harp has zero. Bob, I would probably say of all the directors that we've had in the state from the beginning of time, I would be shocked if Director Harp is the least qualified.
Well, I tell you one thing he's done. Got to say one thing. He's increased all the problems going on in the prison. They've increased under him. So he has done something.
Well, I think his goal is to make it so bad that the state of Oklahoma has to do something. He may have that. Maybe he's got that calculation, and we just don't see how he's working. Maybe that's what his goal is that, if they get enough people killed, that we end up having to have some attention put on our corrections. I don't know, Bob, but again, how are you one of the least qualified ever, but you make the largest, and not largest salary, almost not double, but half. You make more than half anything. You got a 48% raise, a 90,
and we got less correction officers.
You got less. And Bob, one of the things that he's saying in this rebuttal to what I say is he's saying that basically he stopped the officers from leaving, and that he's increased retention, is what he's saying. Increased retention.
That's a lie.
Now, Bob, I don't know where he gets those numbers. I'm going to ask him tomorrow. We're having a hearing tomorrow. I'm going to ask him, where's the numbers prove that? Because all I get are people who are leaving. You get 5 in, 3 leave. You get 5 new officers, and three of them don't last 2 weeks, and they leave. You're down to nothing. People are leaving. This last little fiasco that he had where they gave out a Christmas bonus, which could have been a great, great thing to bring up morale. Instead, what he does, he says, oh, we've been using this evaluation for calibration. So a new form of evaluating employees. We've been using it before I got here. Well,
that's a lie.
Bob, I ain't talked to one employee that knows what he's talking about. And I've talked to some of his own, top level supervisors who say we never used that until just recently. We've never done that. And Bob, they didn't do their 6 months evaluation. They didn't do their normal evaluation. They come in after a year. They're already extended, it looks like to me. And now they
JJ, if he'd been doing this calibration for so long, why did they have to have a training to bring everybody in and explain it to them in November? And why is it not into the policy? Didn't find it anywhere. I couldn't. If it's there, I couldn't find it anywhere in the policy where it said it.
Bob, that's a good question I need to ask tomorrow. Why did you have to train everybody in November if you've had it for a couple of years? That's a really good question, Bob.
I don't believe that anybody, they may have had a calibration, but not to the extent that we had. How can you brag about giving people a pay raise on one hand, and you're taking away in the other? You don't give it to them. How you brag? Well, we paid $2,000 to keep these employees, but yet they didn't do that. They didn't give all the guys the raise. They changed it, but they changed it up where the people could, if they didn't like them, they'd have 10 people that would evaluate them, that maybe those 10 people didn't even know what this job responsibility was for a person, but they didn't like him because he didn't smile.
And they're picking the 10 or 6 or however many they have on that team. So that our listeners, because me and Bob are talking and we understand everything we're saying. So for our listeners, Harp gets a $90,000 raise. Then he comes back and he's going to give a Christmas bonus, and he goes out to the public bragging, oh, we found this $8 million. We found this extra money laying around, which is, you know what? Hey, Bob, you got to.
I'm trying to figure out how to turn that sucker off.
Leave, Bob. But here again, Bob, he finds $8 million just out of nowhere. And then he says, we're going to give it to the employees, which is, I applaud that. I would say that's a great deal and would have been great for morale, which they needed. But then he turns around and comes up with a new form of evaluating. Now, they've had the same evaluation tactic for years and years, but now we change right in the middle of the stream, right before we get this Christmas bonus. So somewhere in November, and again,
well, you changed the Christmas bonus right in there, because then that way you don't have to give it to everybody.
Right, and
you will brag about it.
And the deal is, you go out and brag that we're going to get all this massive. Everybody's going to get it, and then in reality, not everybody gets it. And so what that does is create division. It creates already a hostile environment, just makes it more hostile. And you got people who had exceeded standards for years. And again, what they do, they go in this new way. They go in and pick a team. They're at either a prison or at the probation office or whatever, and they handpick their team. And then their team comes back and determines, are these people worthy of a bonus? Are they not worthy?
And it's only looking at 6 months.
Well, and here's Bob. I'm getting calls from people who were actually sitting in there, claimed to be sitting in there. Let's always make clear, this is reports we're receiving. That I don't have a way to verify this, but I was told that people in that room said that one of the things talked about on an employee was that they didn't smile enough. Bob, they don't smile enough. You know what I mean? So if you don't smile, you don't get 1,500. Now, you know what? Crow don't smile. I'm not Crow. Steve, former director Crow, I apologize to keep getting your name. I just more used to dealing with you. But here's the deal. Director Harp, he don't smile a whole lot at me and you know. Does he smile at you, Bob?
He doesn't like us because we shine a little light on what he's doing, and he wants to be able to do what he wants to do, and not have anybody question him.
Well, Bob, you know, I mean, kind of one of the things that led to me writing this report was Channel 4 run an article, and anybody that wants to see that, just Google up Channel 4.
It's on our site.
Okay, go to Bob's OCP site. So this video is there. You can go to Channel 4, look at that video. Inmates went in and beat another inmate. Now it's
almost to death. Knocked his eye out of socket.
And it's illegal for them to have a phone, or it's contraband, let's say. And so they're on a contraband on a cell phone they're not supposed to have, and they're videotaping this assault, this egregious assault. And they stomped this guy, like Bob said, almost to death. I mean, close to death. But if I remember right, Bob, they busted out his eye socket and his eye was out. But they write void on his forehead. And they videotape this and they send it to his parents, to his family. They send it to the media. I thought they sent it to the director. I won't swear to that, Bob, but I think they did if I'm wrong. But I mean, Bob, the boldness, when you get down to inmates willing to self-videotape their self beating another inmate, and then they send it out to a news station, boy, that's pretty bold. If they send it to the director, that tells you things are out of control.
Well, not only that, but we had 4 officers go into an office of a caseworker, and she was interviewing an inmate, and they went into the office and beat him up in front of her. That's how bold they are. They're not worried about any.
They didn't just beat him up. They stabbed him, what I was told, 6 times. Threw him in the floor and stabbed him 6 times. Didn't even bother. Here's the deal. If you're going to go in and stab somebody, are you going to leave the witness sit right there and watch it all go down? Guess what? They stab him. They don't even care. They just walk right out the room, leave her. You talk about bold. That is bold. Hey, Bob, I was told the other day at Holdenville that an inmate was in fear of his life and that he called 911. So he got a contraband phone and he calls 911 and says, hey, now get this, an inmate calling the police to come to the prison to save him. Now, if that's not, Bob, I've been in the business 35 years.
Because they're so short-staffed that.
Oh, I agree. I agree.
Harp has got the correction officer. They're so short-staffed, just like the shower deal. Okay, they are. It's not the officer's fault that they're short-staffed, but they got to put these guys someplace. But these guys don't want to leave. They get them in there. They don't want to leave because they're afraid they're going to get killed.
Well, let's let the people know what we're talking about. So a little while back, we uncovered the fact that inmates were being locked at Great Plains in a 2x2 cells.
Again, we were liars.
Old showers, 2x2 cells. And they come out and said, not happening. Then they come back and said, well, we're investigating it. They did a 100-page investigation, to my knowledge. What I hear, I've not got to see that. I could go look at it if I wanted. But 100 pages. And they found, we were moving those inmates. We didn't put them in there for punishment. We were moving them. And there was nobody that was left in there more than 3 days. Now, what Bob is saying is that it is so bad at this facility that people are opting to sit in a 2x2 cell. Go draw yourself a 2x2 square so you can get a visual what we're talking about. They would rather stand in that 2x2 cell all day for days than go down there where they want to put them in an 8-man cell with 8 other people who are going to either stab them, rape them, do whatever. So that they're more willing to endure sitting in a 2x2 cell, which is just, that speaks volumes. But here's what's funny, Bob, and I don't know if DOC knows this. I think I've said it enough. They should. But I am sitting on the actual incident reports that show that officers reported this kind of behavior, and they were told. So they went in there. So everybody knows how bad we're talking about. They're so short-handed that they're having to send officers from another facility to this facility to work. So a couple of these officers, I think there were 3, go over from one facility to the other facility, and they're working, and they come across these inmates stuck in this 2x2 cell, and they say, hey, this is not right. This is a human rights violation. This is wrong, as anybody would, okay? And they let them out, and the captains or whoever was in charge came and said, no, y'all don't understand how things work here. Those people are being punished. They're in there for punishment. Put them back in there. Now, these officers wrote these incident reports saying it because what happened, they put them back in, but the next day they come back to shift briefing, and these officers are making fun of them for letting these people out.
Well, JJ, the bottom line is they are so short-handed. They're so short-handed. They can't go in and shake down a shell. They can see knives, shanks in their cell, but they can't go in there. They don't have enough people.
I was told at Hodeville the other day that they had 4 people show up on shift. Now I hadn't verified that, but I got it from.
Well, they only usually have 10, so that's not unusual.
Well, but here's the deal. Let's put it in perspective. 1,400 inmates. 1,400 inmates, 4 officers. How is that even possible? You know what I'm saying? And you got all kinds of stations. And here's what's funny, Bob. Something happens, they're going to fire. How many times have we went to defend people who were in charge of a unit?
All the time. They want to blame it on an officer.
Yeah.
It's their fault.
240
It's administration's fault. They don't have them there. It's not.
Yeah, somebody gets stabbed or something, 240 people, and you're going to blame that on the officer. But here they know there's no way. Guess what? Your towers. Bob, if they don't have their towers filled, guess what? Your yard, anything's going on.
Right.
I mean, you got anything going on, you have no control over drugs coming in. Bob, their ODs, I was told at one prison that they had 20 ODs in 1 month. Were you the one telling me? Who was telling me that? I can't remember.
Well, we heard that.
Yeah. But again, I think his employee actually told that. But again, Bob, there's all of this stuff. And what's bad, so that our listeners know, hey, I'm sitting there as chairman of corrections. Can I verify any of this? And would I believe it if the department, just like on those shower deals, I'm sitting with the incident report saying it happened, it was.
And they denied it.
I mean, there's no question. Multiple employees saying that, and then they come back and say, never happened. We were moving some people, and they happened to stay in there. No more over than 3 days.
Well, a reporter found that that one guy was in there 9 days.
Yeah, and I'd only come up with 8, and he come up with like 17 that they had done this to.
Right.
And so, Bob, that's what we're seeing. And again, we brought it out. We brought out that rapes are occurring. I know that the director, we come out and talked about that we had received a report. And again, I'm just going to say that was at Great Plains. We received a report at Great Plains that an inmate had been tied up in an 8-man cell, that he'd been hogtied, and that's the way they put it, hogtied and raped repeatedly, gang raped by the people in that cell. Now, again, here comes the director and says, well, if J.J. Humphrey's got any knowledge of something happening, then he needs to report it. Well, I just did report it. I just wrote it out in a report, but why would I give that to him? I gave him a whole packet of rapes going on.
He denied all of them.
He denied it. And then I gave, you know, the
Well, why would you have to tell him about an incident that took place at his prison? He's the one that's supposed to be in there taking care of that.
Well, he said he didn't know. That's about the truest statement he ever said, is he don't know because he don't know what's going on. And Bob, we come out and said that now I was wrong, Bob. I was wrong on some stuff. So I'd come out and said a person had been decapitated and stuffed in a trash can and they didn't find him for 12 hours. That's not quite true. He'd been stabbed in the neck, what, 6, 8 times?
8 times, in total 70 times altogether on his body.
Stabbed a total of 50 to 70, stabbed 8 times in the neck. So he was only halfway decapitated, and it only took them 7 hours to find him instead of 12.
But you was right. They had him in a trash can.
But here's the deal, Bob.
But JJ, no, just a second, JJ. This happened in October. Have we heard one thing about it? Has DOC ever released any information about it?
No. Bob, the guy at Channel 4, would we ever heard that if these guys hadn't videotaped it?
No.
You know, the inmate at Holderville, if that wasn't so egregious that a guy, I mean, here's what's happening. Our people are laughing about that. The other employees are going, this is how bad it is. And that's how that got out. Is the employees were saying, this is how bad it is, you know. Now,
he did say one truthful thing in there, that it's really, prisons are really bad. There's lots of things happen. And you know what? They are, because he's created them with his management. He got to go, JJ. That just got to go. Someone is going to get killed, and officers are going to get killed.
Bob, I worked in corrections for 30 plus years. When I came on, we had just got sued in federal court, and the Oklahoma Department of Corrections went under federal control. And that's kind of where I started right there. And guess what? They started having training. They got officers hired. I can tell you, Bob, for the first 10 years I was there, I am one trained individual. And I mean that in all sincerity. Our CERT teams were being called. People were requesting us to come in and fix problems. Our hostage negotiation teams, our dog teams, you know, tracking down inmates and stuff like that. If they had somebody leave the highway patrol, guess what? We were the ones they were calling. We were highly trained. Everything. I mean, probation, everything. You were trained. Weapons, self-defense, how to engage, how to verbalize, everything.
Well, JJ, let's talk about something. When you're bringing people into the academy first, then you put them into the prison, then they find out what it's really like. And then you spent that money with them on academy. You spent money on them in academy. They find out what it's really like. They quit. Well, they do that rather than put the guys in the prison, let them see what it's like, and they'll work a few weeks there. Then they go to academy. It saved money, but that's not. You know, one thing I've learned on Harp, he's not worried about money. He'll spend money, $25,000 on some jackets for the wardens. $25,000.
Bob, how many wardens do we have? Do you know?
I would say we have 23.
Somewhere around 23, I think. So basically what we're saying is that, I mean, who knows, maybe he brought some for the administrators, you know, who knows, but if it's only for wardens, that's $1,000 a jacket.
But the point is that he has no problem with spending money. Just like on our cases that we have, they want to appeal. They keep losing, but they want to appeal it again, which costs more money. It costs more money for OCP. It costs more money for DOC. But he doesn't care. It's not his money. He wastes money like there's nothing to it. I don't see how Stitt can support him with the way he wastes money when the governor is very particular and careful about spending money the right way. But he lets this guy is rampant on spending money and wasting money. Have you heard about they're wanting to put TV cameras now on all the officers?
Yeah, they want to do body cams is what I'm hearing.
Well, TV cameras.
And I've got some mixed feelings about that. I think that in certain instances, But what we already do in those instances, we already film. If you're professional, what you do, if you got to go do a shakedown, go film it.
They got to get the cameras don't work. They're old, they're antiquated, and they're not doing nothing about trying to get them fixed. We've complained about it now. How long? 4 years.
Here's the deal, Bob. If I'm wearing one 24/7, there's already a lawsuit that I think was won on this. And you may have sent me the article. Somebody sent me an article that some of the officers that this thing was on while they're having to go to the bathroom, because once you turn them on, you can't turn them off. So here's the deal. What you don't realize, if I'm a correctional officer, a big part of my job is talking to inmates all day. The way I find out who's doing what game, who's going to stab who's going to do what, is I confidentially talk to people all day long. And somebody goes, "Hey man, you better be watching so-and-so. Well, what's going on?" "Oh man, I ain't telling you, but you better be watching." Well, the next guy you go, "Hey, what's going on with so-and-so and so-and-so?" "Oh man, I heard such and such." That's how you get your information. That's how you keep the yard safe. You got to have enough people there to do that, but that's how you do it. If you're on a video all day long, that's not happening. Again, you got bathrooms. If you're strip searching people, do you really want them on? You have to strip search a lot of people. There's a lot of issues on video camera for correctional officers. So again, I know that's a conversation that needs to take place. But here's where I'm at, Bob. You're wanting to get a brand new headquarters, a brand new office. You're wanting to start a 16-week training session, which, again, I'm not opposed to. I'm not opposed to a new office if we need it. Do we need it? We got to.
Well, we need more space because he's hired so many of his friends in administration. We're overloaded administrations, and we're short at the prisons. That really makes sense. Do you know that they don't even use their CERT team anymore? They're so short-headed, they don't use the CERT team.
They don't have enough people to. And here's the other problem: you can't train a CERT team, and that's what I was saying before. When we were there, we were trained. People wanted to be on the CERT team. To get on that CERT team, you had to be a good employee. You had to be begging to get on it. And then again, we had enough people when an incident happened, you could come take control. Right now, they don't have that. They don't have anything like that.
We're going to be closed down here soon. What else in there, his response back to you, what you said, what else did they not tell the truth about?
Well, Bob, we still got a little time, Bob. We're not quite there. But Bob, one of the things that I just want to make is under that Battles versus State where we went under. If you go back and look at that, guess what? The reason we come out and trained and did all this and we changed was because of that. We're there again. We have come full circle. I don't know that we're not worse off than what we were right there. I don't know. I think we're in pretty bad shape. But Bob, he's taking credit for all captains getting a raise. Which here's the deal, Bob. I am going to say that happened under his watch. I'll give him some credit.
But he didn't do it. He wasn't the one that got it going.
How did that happen, Bob? How did that get done?
We had a bill. We had a bill to get the captains where they would get overtime pay.
So here's what's funny. We discussed this. We discussed it. Couldn't get it done. We talked about filing a lawsuit. And what happened, I filed a bill. I didn't have, I had too many bills to put that on my top list, because I also had another uniform bill at the same time, which was, I think it's an allowance pay, I think of $150, Bob, that we were going to try to get employees, correctional officers, a uniform allowance of $150. And then I filed this, getting the captain's pay. And I think I either gave that to David Smith, Kevin West, or Denise Crosswhite Hayter. We filed that. They come back and agreed they would do that without us having to pass that bill. So we negotiated that off to the side, and we killed our bill. Now, that's the way I remember it, Bob.
That's what happened. That's what happened. We had the votes. We'd already counted. We had the votes. Well, they said, "Hey, we want to get it done, but give us 1 year and we'll get it done. And they did. They kept their word for that. That must not have been Harp that been involved in it, because it probably wouldn't happen.
Well, he doesn't know the whole back channel, and that's why he's taking credit for it. But here's what I find extremely humorous, Bob, is that OCP was the one who initiated that. OCP was the one who came to me. You came to me with that issue, and we filed the bill for OCP.
And wait a minute, though. We could have sued them and got it done, because what they did was they never won the lawsuit. We could have won that. I talked to too many attorneys on the issue. We had it won. We had the votes.
But here's the deal, Bob. We worked with them to get that done, and that's the way it should be. That's the way it ought to work. But he came in and said, OCP is a union. OCP is a third party. We're not going to do anything. He has made certain. They've come out and called your members, thugs, everything else, said we're clowns and all kinds of stuff. But here's what's funny. He's taking credit. What was initiated as an OCP initiation, filed a bill, the whole 9 yards. I'm going to try to find
He took credit. He also took credit for that, the big raise we got, the 30%er. He was involved in that.
Bob, here's what's funny is he said it's impossible for them to hide money. So he come back because I said, here's the deal. They hide money. And I was talking about if you have 100 employees that I'm paying you for, and now you only have 50 employees, where's the other 50%? Pretty common, easy. Guess what, Director Harp? How much are we paying you for? How the hell much do you got? Because I guarantee you, where'd the $8 million come from? If you can't have just money willy-nilly pop up, where'd the $8 million come from where you got the Christmas bonus? And hey, how is it that our budget people that I came in 3 to 4 months ahead of time told them the Department of Corrections will come in and say they're going to give a $30 million raise without one new appropriation, without one new tax, not one dime? They're going to come in and say, we've got $30 million in. And I told them, set on your hand. We're going to get more than 30 million. We're going to get upward 40 million. We got $43 million is what we got. And again, that not one new appropriation, not $1, every dime of that come out of their budget that was already there. So tell me how you hide $43 million. And the deal is it was more than that. It's been going on for years. So they're sitting there saying, not so, bull crap, it is so. And here's the other, go back 2 or 3 directors before that to a guy named Jones. And guess what? Director Jones got in trouble. I know the guy who's an accountant that they put on his board. His name is Stephen Burridge. Stephen Burridge found $12 million hid under OCI. And Jones come back and said, well, we didn't know if it's in OCI that it's ours. Well, it's your division. How would you not know? Busted him. By the way, they were furloughing employees at the time, taking away employees' retirement, taking away employee income, and had $12 million hit at the same time. They busted him and they turned around 2 years later. They got him doing the same exact thing with $20 million. And now these people are coming back and saying, oh, there's no way to hide money. Bull. They've been caught. They've been caught too many times. So it's just unbelievable that they would have the gall to say that. But Bob, what
about saying that the prisons are tough? You know, that's just the way it kind of like he's just taking it like there's no big deal about inmates dying. No big deal about the officers under stress because they're so short-handed.
Bob, I was a probation officer for I don't know how many years. We had a couple of shootings. I mean, I could go back and tell you that we had some shootings. We had an officer shot there in Shawnee. We had an officer that dog bit. I got dog bit 5 or 6 times.
I can believe that.
Yeah, I got bit all the time. But here's the deal, Bob. You didn't hear violence. You had some stabbings in prisons. You had some officers hurt. You had an officer.
Not to the extent that we have now. It was unbelievable.
If in the
and
whole,
this is just what we know about. What we don't know is is the question.
Bob, in the 20 years that I was, on with, and I was longer than 20, but in the 21 years or whatever I was there with the Department of Corrections, and I've been closely associated since. To my knowledge, I can remember one officer being killed. It's possible more in 20 years. We're talking about 20 years. And now we have officers being stabbed. We have directors being stabbed. You know what I'm saying? I mean, not directors.
Administrator. Warden, deputy warden.
Deputy warden is what I was told. Bob, they're having a celebration. They're dedicating the prison and they're naming it for a guy who got stabbed. And while they're doing that, I'm talking while they're doing that, an officer gets stabbed. It's just, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, you can't make it up.
You know, it's funny you say that because I was talking to a person the other day about DOC and they was asking some questions. I said, you don't have to lie about DOC. I mean, what you just tell the truth is unbelievable what's going on just by telling the truth. So you don't need to make things up.
Bob, if half of what we hear is true, it's unreal.
If they were transparent, we would know what was going on, but they're not transparent because they don't want to be transparent because they know it's bad. Well, so Bob, they can hide it. They know that the director doesn't know what he's doing. This is not me saying this. I hear this out there in the prisons all the time, that this director is running it.
Well, and here's what I don't understand, Bob. If I had these level of problems, and if I'd had them when I come in, if I'd have started, Stephen Hart and me don't even think anywhere close to the same. Because the day I would have started, if I'd been Director Hart, I would have been highlighting every stabbing, every incident, every assault, every rape. I would have went after these rapes and made sure. I mean, people would have known 100%. I would look like a hero. I would be, and I would shed light, and I would have the legislators going, man, he is trying to fix this problem. How do we get behind him? How do we get money? By being transparent, honest. But instead, what does he do? He comes in, he covers, he's part cat because he just scratches up and covers up his crap. And so, he acts like a cat. Everywhere he goes, he craps and he covers it up. And so the thing about it is, it's just unreal at how many just unbelievable things have happened under this administration. And again, Bob, DOC has always tried to stay out of sight, out of mind. That's been their motto. And I will tell you, this director, because of just all the stuff that he has done, Bob, I would doubt for the last 8 months, do you think that he's had 1 week that he hadn't been in the news cycle on a negative? I think he's had 2 positive reports, which he wrote himself. You know what I'm saying? Or had somebody else write them for him.
Right.
And again, if you have to get other people to write to praise you, if you got to go, Bob, would you write this report and praise me and see if you can say some good things about me? That's not a good way. And that's pretty much what he's had happen. One of the things they said was that he was recognized nationwide for what he's doing. Well, what the hell is he doing, Bob? You're about as close to corrections. I would say there's not 2 people in the state of Oklahoma probably knows more going on in the Department of Corrections who are not part of their agency, but we're just talking about outside people trying to find out, trying to work to help other employees.
I wonder what that board does. I don't know what does that board do, but they let all this stuff go on.
I don't think the board knows. I figured they keep them in the dark like they keep everybody else in the dark. But my question, Bob, what can you hang your hat on that Stephen Harp has done that would be worthy of national recognition? So here's what DOC wants you to believe. Whoever wrote that, this is what they want you to believe. Is that Stephen Harp has zero training, 0 education, 0 experience. Big fat duck egg on all of that. Comes in less than a year. he is recognized as the national, making a change in the Department of Corrections. Now, how does that happen? And I don't doubt that it happens, because here's the deal. It's a rich kids club, and they all get over there and shine each other up and talk crap. And, oh, look what you done. The whole thing of, if you want to know why we can't get criminal justice reform in Oklahoma, is because all a bunch of people who are hobnob politicians get in a room and know absolutely nothing about what they're talking about, and come up with criminal justice, instead of asking somebody who's actually done it, been around. And again, let's not just take Justin Humphrey. Let's go out and get true boots on the ground, people who know, judges and others, police officers, people who are seeing everything. But that's not what we do. We go out and get the rich kid who had barbecue all over him, looking bad, bring him over, wash him off, get the barbecue off of him, give him a $90,000 raise, and say, wreck this place. And when you get this place wrecked, we'll move you somewhere else. That seems to be what we're looking at.
Well,
I'm just shocked, Bob.
I mean, if you want to talk about things he's done, how many times have you heard of an inmate going into an officer's room, a caseworker's room, 4 people go in there and beat the guy up right in front of her? How many times have you heard that?
Bob, that's what we were talking about earlier.
I know, but how many times have you heard of it before?
Never.
Well, what about how many times have you heard of 8 guys piling on one guy and beating the crap out of him, and film it, video it with their camera, that's their phone they're not supposed to have in the prison, but they can have all this stuff in the prison because they don't have enough people to keep it out. They don't have people on the towers because they're shorthanded. They don't have people on the x-ray machine when you come in. They're shorthanded. They don't have enough people to run the place, and he yet is wanting to get more buildings to put his friends in so he can have more people over there that agrees with him.
Bob, I was told by an employee the other day that they come in and they were shorthanded, and they said, hey, you're going to have to not work where we've got you, which was like SHU. For people who are listening, that means where they have segregated people either for protection or because they've been in trouble. What they call, it's kind of like the prison jail, kind of segregated off. One of their higher security, it requires a lot of work. They're locked down all the time, so you have to let them go out, shower, and get yards. They got to get some exercise. You got to give their food to them hand in hand. So it takes a lot of work. They pull him off of that and send him to another unit, and he's like, hey, these people ain't had a shower in 2 weeks. We got to get them a shower.
That's right now. Right now. Today.
Oh, that's right now. That's just, I just got that report yesterday, and they were like, hey, pull off. These guys didn't get another shower for another day. They've been over 2 weeks without a shower. Guess what? It's policy, big time policy violation. But who's going after them? Who's holding them responsible?
Well, here's something I kind of wonder about. I seen his response to that calibration. We've been doing that forever, a number of years, I guess. Not one reporter checked it out to find out if that was true. You remember when he says that when he got those uniforms and they had the reporter ask him, well, do other prisons across our country or around us, do they have those uniforms as well? Oh, yeah. Yeah. She called. They didn't have.
Nobody had.
They're not. He can just go up there and lie like crap, and nobody checks it, cross-references.
Bob, he's lied on the rapes. Again, they didn't check that out. And again, he claims, we went down there to that hearing and proved they left the only witness that they had to the deal would not bring him. Now, that ought to tell you a whole bunch right there. When your main witness, you will not bring, and you were given in writing to bring him, and that you'll take and ignore the committee, the elected committee, and you'll ignore that, and that you won't bring it, and then claim, we prove it. Your legal person, general counsel, comes down, refuses to answer one question, rude acts. One of the most idiotic, rude individuals I've ever seen. No wonder they can't win nothing. But the thing about it is guess what? What did they prove? They didn't prove anything. We showed witness after witness. We showed evidence after evidence, and yet we're totally ignored. And they sit back here and go, oh, we proved it. Oh, there's nothing there. Oh, the AG. Well, the AG went over and said, did y'all look at that? Oh, yeah. So the AG asked them, they admitted that in that hearing. They admitted they had talked to one witness. They had done one thing. They didn't do anything. And yet, here we go. Oh, yeah, nothing to see here. And we've got people in the legislation, people high up, they go, well, JJ didn't prove anything. The AG said it wasn't there. Wow, did y'all even pay any attention? But everybody wants to believe this guy when he sits and lies. Then here comes the shower. I'm sitting here with incident reports saying it was for punishment, saying it happened. They go out and do an investigation, ignore their own employees. They know this stuff is there. They lie like everything. Then they turn around and they come back. Oh, prison's a bad place. Yeah, you notice they didn't say, oh, this guy didn't get his head cut off. You notice they didn't say that the inmate didn't make a 911 call. You notice they didn't say that people filmed that and beat the crap out of this guy and wrote void on his head. And you notice, well, if JJ knows there's rape, he needs to tell it. What JJ just did, how about if you get off your sorry ass and go investigate it? How about that, But again, you don't hear any of that. The guy lies. That's the bottom line.
Well, it's got to catch up with him eventually. It's just can't keep going on like this. We can't be so short-handed that the guys are scared to go to work in some cases, some of the prisons, because it's how dangerous it is. But when you see a guy getting beat up and you don't see one officer, not one officer there.
Well, Bob, think about if you were that officer. Would you go down there? Hell, eight people. You're going to take on 8 people that you know.
But it's the responsibility of the state of Oklahoma to keep those inmates safe, as well as to make a safe environment for the people who work there. They're under a very stressful environment.
And we're going to have to wrap up here, but.
We got lots of time.
No, we did have, but we don't now because I got to get up there. In fact, I'm coming to visit you here in a minute. 2 hours. Give me 2.5 hours, Bob. But here's the thing. Director Hart came in and DOC had one of the best mottos. And protect the public, protect the employee, and protect the offender. Now that's a motto. Now he changed that to we make change. And I'm just wondering what kind of change he makes. But here's the deal. I've wondered, why would you change such a great motto, one that was so personal to all of us that have worked for the department? I mean, this was built into us. And it really made me mad when he changed that. And I've come to the conclusion he changed it because he was failing at it so miserably. He ain't protecting the public. He ain't protecting the employee. He surely ain't protecting the inmates.
And an inmate walk off at Veneta.
And yeah, they had escaped. Yeah, you've always had.
But they don't even go. They're so short-handed. They don't even go look for him.
Did they? I'm going to tell you something. We have a serious problem. That's why we're coming on here today. We are calling it out. And again, you don't hear me coming on and talking about. I'm working with DHS on some issues. Again, I'm not calling. I have not come out. Me and Director Crow had.
Before we go, I want to ask you this question. Yeah. Have you heard anything about horse tranquilizers that the inmates now are using to get high? And
well, Bob,
because they didn't show up in the bloodstream.
Yeah, you had sent me that, and again, have I ever heard that? Yes, that's pretty. It equates to PCP. PCP is a tranquilizer. And again, what happens, you see these drugs cycle and it'll be something pretty close. But what happens is we quit. PCP is so outdated, nobody's putting it on your test. You can get tests that will catch that. It's just no longer. Right now, all your tests are going to be opioids, fentanyl, methamphetamine, crack, even marijuana. People are kind of like, who cares anymore? You can still have one that's got weed. Your problem with weed also is it stays in your system so long. So if you test them today, you got to have a system that will test the levels of that drug in their system. I'm a pretty good drug tester. My brain went dead, nanobites or something like that's what they're called. And anyways, you got to test these levels, and they don't have the ability I did when I worked. I had a actual machine, one of the few in Oklahoma who could do that. So, but it's possible, but that's what you'll see is that's going to be something pretty close to what PCP is. And if you know anything about PCP, Bob, what happens is you go through these cycles. And so what begins to happen is you will be happy, and then you will be mad. Somebody will come in and mention OU, and your OU team lost as usual. I don't know why that make anybody mad. But here's the deal. Then they turn around and get boom. And when I say mad, go after it. And then they'll get melancholy. So they go through all of these cycles. But when they're mad, you can't stop them because it's a tranquilizer. You can jerk their arm off. You can cut their head off. They don't care. They don't feel anything.
Well, speaking of that, let's go back here on this incident. Have you, since you've been around here a long time, have you ever heard of anybody getting stabbed 70 times and having their head was just hanging on by a string and put in the trash can?
One time, I know of a case that I had to actually work the security on this case, and they had a hitman in the prison that 2 other inmates went and took out. They stabbed him 51 times and cut his throat. But again, that was in the shower. That was immediately. You
can close it out because we got to go. So close it out.
In that instance, the prison was trying to shut that down as it was going on. They knew it was going on, and they tried to shut it down and immediately got control of that. This is going on. Nobody knows about it. Stabbed up to 70 times, possibly. Head almost severed off. We're hearing rapes. We're hearing these other beatings. And just soon as they get through one beating, that videotape beating, hey, the next day, I think, next day or two, they had another beating at the same facility. And that's what we're talking about. 3 years ago, we came out and said, due to the staff shortage, you're going to see a massive increase in drugs and contraband, illegal games going on the yard. You're going to see violence escalate, inmate on inmate violence escalate. We've seen that. We're going to see rapes. We're going to see violent stabbings, all of these beatings. We've seen that. We predicted when we get to that point that you're going to see that translate and be transferred on. You're going to start seeing inmate on officer and employee violence. And then when that happens, you're going to see something really bad, massive lives being taken or some kind of riot. Again, we shouldn't, as Oklahoma, we ought to wake up. This is what's going on right now. Me and Bob have been out saying this for the last 3 years. We've been right so far. We predicted everything just as what it's going on. And again, we ought not to wait till something major happens. Let's take care of it, Oklahoma. Let's go to the board. Let's go to.
Well, we had some major things happen, but it's been with the inmates. And a lot of people don't care about the inmates. It's sad. It's really sad. It is sad. Well, that's an inmate. They get what they deserve. Well, that's not right.
That's not true. And it's up to us. The professionals are, listen, if they're going to fight, we'll fight. But when we get done, we're going to treat you professional. But you know what? It doesn't matter what they did. It's about us, not about them. It's how we do, not about what they do. And it's time that we step up and say we're going to get our correctional. And I want to talk to all you employees across the state. Step up, join OCP, and let's get an association that says we're not going to tolerate this. And let's talk about how we can get more employees hired to take care of this staffing shortage. Bob, I appreciate everybody listening. It's great to be back. We're probably going to talk about next week about DAs stealing probation fees, getting money for not providing actual service. That's called theft. And we're going to turn around and talk about how they have a money laundering scheme so that they can spend that money and not be in violation. The only problem is they're violating 2 laws when they do it, called theft and money laundering. And we're going to talk about those things, as well as a lawsuit that I have filed. Me and McDougal filed a lawsuit on one district attorney, and we're looking at whether to file on more, whether to file on all, or just what we're going to do in order to get the DAs to give public records. They're supposed to be the ones enforce it. Instead, we're having to sue them to get them to do it. So we'll talk about that next week, Bob. Y'all have a great day.